Good afternoon, Adam. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Am I too early or am I too late?
No, you're right on time. It's been quiet, so you're the first one,
Gotcha.
and we could get started whenever you'd like. Since it's just the two of us, it could be as informal or formal as you'd like. I could just do a question and answer if you prefer,
Well, what
or I
what
could.
was your plan? What was your intent?
My plan is to go through my website, and through going through the website, you'd get an overview of the services I provide. Um, if time permitted, I was also going to talk about an introduction to the AT consideration process, and then
Yeah,
open it up for questions.
yeah. Why don't we skip through whatever we can and talk about whatever we need to talk about.
Okay, so we'll go through my website, and just feel free to stop me whenever you have a question.
All right,
All right, I'm just going to share my screen.
go ahead.
And let me share my sound. Can you see my screen?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, so I'm an assistive technology consultant, working in primarily the northern and central New Jersey and the New York City area. And this is my recently remodeled website. And just going to go through the information in the website. If you're not familiar with assistive technology, I can go through a definition of that, but I provide assistive technology services to adults and children with disabilities. The first type of service I provide are evaluations and consultations. So this is primarily a matching activity where you're matching the individual to technologies that match the thing that they're having difficulty with, their challenges, and the environment that they're using it in. And this covers a wide range of areas from reading, writing, doing math, taking notes, physical access, some vision and hearing supports, supports at work or in school or at home. I also work with a speech language pathologist and do augmentative communication evaluations with the speech therapist.
Okay.
Ongoing support services, it focuses mainly on training, teaching the individual and their support staffs or their family members how to use the technology, but also how to integrate it into the task that or the environment that they're working in. Professional development training and workshops could be in person or online on almost any topic within assistive technology. Home assistive technology supports, so that could be tailored to support specifically at home, like homework support or access, gaming, home setup, recreation, etc. I also work with artists, visual artists with disabilities. So if anyone's looking for accessible art tools, I can help with that, as well as accessible musical instruments. I do work on supporting product design for new products for people with disabilities. I have an engineering and product manager background. And I do beta testing of new products in the assistive technology world, and school and district-wide assistive technology assessments. So if a school district wants to get a better idea of what their capabilities are in terms of assistive technology, I can help put them together. And are you familiar with assistive technology?
Yeah. I've been in the field since 2001,
Oh,
so I'm pretty familiar with it. But it's
okay.
nice to hear what you're doing as a consultant on the side. That's something that I've always considered is when I'm finished this career, would I want to do sort of work like this? So it's just interesting to see what you put together here. I like it. One of the things that stood out for me was the piece on support around arts, because we have an arts program at my institution. I'm in Toronto in a college called Centennial College. And in that arts program, we had some students with disabilities with functional limitations, mobility limitations, who were challenged to do some of the art, right? Requiring them to have fine motor control and duration to be able to manipulate the clay for their art, etc., for their designs. And so we had to sort of work through that challenge. So it would have been interesting to sort of pick your brain around how you would have supported that. But it's a good bevy of services you offer here. Very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's the definition. On the website, I also have some FAQs that answers to frequently asked questions. Is there age limit on assistive technology? And that's no. I'm not as familiar with the assistive technology laws and regulations in Canada, but that's something I'd have to look into at some point. But I'm assuming that they would have similar types of services available. I just don't know about on the legislative side how they compare.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to know it now, but very quickly, we have our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is equivalent to probably your Bill of Rights, maybe, which provides inalienable rights as a citizen. And then individually as provinces, we have legislation. So I'm in Ontario, and we have what's called the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. And so those are two primary pieces of legislation, federally and provincially. And then, we do have institutional policies as well.
Interesting. Let's see. Here's a question I get. Is assistive technology a form of cheating? No, it isn't. And then I have a resources page. I do a lot of webinars with Disability Rights New Jersey, and they have a really great YouTube channel where all the assistive technology webinars are recorded. And they really cover a wide range of assistive technology topics. So that's a nice place to look for recorded webinars.
Yeah. Your name is not new to me, even though mine might be new to you. I've attended your sessions in the past, and I think you're a great speaker and presenter on AT and a huge advocate for AT. Your name has come up. I belong to an organization called the Network of Adaptive Technologists, NOAT, and the website's noat.ca, Canada. And it's a bunch of us from Canada and America, and we have some international friends as well. And pretty much weekly we talk about adaptive technology. And if ever you're interested in joining, reach out to Doug Mantle. He runs that organization. I'm sure he'd be happy to have you either run a session or come on in and sit with us, whatever you want to do.
Wow, that sounds great. I haven't heard of that organization. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah,
definitely check it out. Great. And I just like to put all these resources on the website because sometimes people just want to get started, and resources are always a great way for doing that. I do have a webinar coming up on the 10th, which is going to be just a quick overview of physical access and AT for mobility. It's just going to be kind of like a 101 type of webinar. We're going to be talking about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and local building codes, and how do you make a building accessible, as well as some different classes of mobility supports. Client list, mostly in New Jersey, also in New York. Some testimonials from some very nice people who agreed. A little bit about myself. My resume is here. And then a mini ebook that I put together a few years ago that focuses on pre-writing and idea organization, with the focus group being K-12 classrooms, but I think it's also applicable to college students who have challenges with idea organization and getting their thoughts together before they start writing something. Contact information. I have a little ask a question section, and that's it for the website itself. A second topic that I could be happy to go through if you're interested is something called assistive technology consideration. Are you familiar with that term?
Assistive technology consideration?
Yes.
Like, is that the process in which an AT will go through to identify what supports and training a student or an individual might need?
Yes, in a way. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, which is the federal legislation that essentially created special education, has something in there. It says all students with an IEP, an individualized education program, should be considered for assistive technology. So basically every student receiving special ed services should be considered for assistive technology, but they don't really say what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Consideration. So out of that grew a process called the AT consideration, which is kind of like an informal assistive technology evaluation. I kind of like to think of it as an assistive technology screening. And it's something that the school team, the IEP team, could get started and do kind of without the help of an assistive technology expert. And it's kind of like a way to begin the process of looking at potential assistive technologies for an individual or student with disabilities. And I put together a package of some forms that teams can use just to begin the process. But I think they're applicable pretty much to almost any setting. If you're interested, I could go through some of those forms real quick. There's also a link on the resource page
Mm-hmm.
that links to the folder that has all of these documents in it. It's just 3 documents.
Gotcha. Oh, it's the set, the weighty. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so what I've done here is I've put together, which this is a place I like to start. I created a set worksheet, which is, based on the set, but it's just a way for teams to lay out the information. And it could be a shared Google Doc or it could be handwritten. But just to lay out the set, at least the first 3 parts, the student, environment, and task, just to kind of lay the groundwork for looking at technology. And then, of course, the AT continuums. Whoops. Come on, get out of the way. As a checklist to go through the checklist and just check off anything that seems like it would apply to the student. Mm-hmm. And to the specific challenge. And then I put together a assistive technology consideration, which is just like a planning form for doing the AT consideration. It has a referral question, what's the main area that the student's having difficulty with. List any assistive technologies the student has used in the past, previous assistive technology evaluations, attach a copy of the WADI checklist, and then just kind of plan out what you're going to do. A technology trial, who's responsible, where's the trial going to happen, and then which technologies did the student try out. And then at the end of that 2 to 4 week period, what were the results of the trial? Another thing you could add to this are criteria. So sometimes it's nice to have a measurable criteria to use in deciding if the technology helped, didn't help, or had no impact.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, that's, I work in post-secondary students who are, 18 and above.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've examined Joy Zabala's work, and I've looked at different frameworks over the years, but they never really align to the work that I do with my students. And I've always been challenged with looking at what tool can I use to assess the needs of my students,
Mm-hmm.
and their functional limitations and their feedback. And so it's funny now, after this many years, I'm now in the process of developing a framework on my own, and I've called it the RONA framework, not in any way related to coronavirus, just it's the ROWNAA. And so it doesn't sort of go at AT from the perspective of the technology first. It goes from the functional limitation first. So it examines the student
Mm-hmm.
in areas of academics. So reading, organization, writing, note-taking, arithmetic, assessment. That's the ROWNAA. And
Oh,
then
okay.
it gets the practitioner, the AT, to go through areas with the individual where they examine, the documentation, what the documentation says, what was the student's experience or the impact of this
Mm-hmm.
disability, what
Mm-hmm.
connections can you draw as an AT
Mm-hmm.
to these areas of functional difficulty, your
Mm-hmm.
training plan, what
Mm-hmm.
disbursement or funding resources exist, and then how you're
Mm-hmm.
going to measure the success of this plan you're putting together. And
Mm.
so that's sort of something I'm developing now, and I'm talking with my colleagues and connections through that NOTE group I talked to you about, NOAT. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking to sort of take a different tack at it. Now, it might not work for K to 12, some of the work that you do with
Mm-hmm.
some of the younger kids, but at least for the
Mm-hmm.
post-sec, where it's
Mm-hmm.
academics first, reading,
Mm-hmm.
organization, writing, note-taking, arithmetic, assessment, those are key areas
Mm-hmm.
that students tend to need accommodations for and support for. So just a little bit of a
Sure.
different take on it than what's been done in
Yeah.
the past.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I was an adjunct instructor at Kane University for many years, so I understand what you're saying. And it is interesting to contrast, post-secondary with K-12 students. Um, well, if you put something together and you like to like to get it out there, send it to me, and I'd be happy to share it with the New Jersey assistive technology community. We have an organization called NJ CART, which you may have heard of.
Mhm.
It's basically a statewide users group of people that are interested in assistive technology, and always looking for good tools. That's for sure.
Okay, yeah, I think it's in its infancy, so maybe I'd share it with you first, Adam. You can
Sure,
you can tell me
sure,
whether it's making sense before it goes off to anywhere else.
sure. I'd be happy to give it a look.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. I don't want to keep you back from other sessions as well, but thank you for sharing this with me. I appreciate it. And keep doing these
Absolutely.
sessions. The sessions I've seen you do are incredible, so thank you.
Oh, thanks very much, Lyle. I appreciate the feedback. And, if there's any topics that you're interested in, please send me an email because, we have a lot of flexibility in terms of the topics. It sounds like art might be of interest to you.
Absolutely.